Okay, so moving on to functionalism. Functionalism is a structural approach. If you recall from the last video, we talked about two groups of sociologists, those that are more on the structural side of the scale and those more on the agency side of the scale. So structure is those that see less of a room for individual thought and action, and that by and large that the individual is a product of society, and that this thing we call culture, which is made up of norms, values, statuses and roles, so that thing that we are socialized in to conform us together, and the way we act, the way we think, gives little for the individual, and we are a product of this process that run through the family, the mass media, education, criminal justice system, and so on. This is a macro approach. It doesn't see the need or the point even in looking at individual motivations. It's about the large, not the small. It is looking at how these social institutions operate and how they produce us, if you like. It is a positivist approach. That is, it takes from the natural sciences and looks to treat society in the same way that a clockmaker or someone investigating a machine would work out the various parts of the machine, see how it all fits together, applying the scientific method and looking to go forward in this way. It is a modernist way of thinking. That is, it comes from a society which has grown out of the application of scientific principles, i.e. industrial society, and it is looking at society in those terms. Emile Durkheim, not only the founding father of functionalism, but a kickstarter for sociology in total. Some of his ideas, a lot of his ideas, will appear to us as old-fashioned, but to give the geezer his due, he was writing in the late 19th century, and some of what he says reflects that, and I will demonstrate what I mean about that in a second. Key to him, though, was to establish sociology as a scientific discipline, to apply the way of science to the study of society. And as I say, this involves observation. It is what we see on the outside. It is looking at quantifiable, countable elements. It is applying a scientific method. It is not looking for the motivation of individuals. It is seen that society or culture constrains action in such a degree as to leave little room for, if you like, agency or individual action. We are, in this point of view, the structuralist, positivist, modernist point of view, the macro point of view. We are products of society, like sausages coming out of a meat grinder. We come out in the same shape and then we act in the same way. We are conformist. And functionalism was very, very concerned with maintaining that conformity. Durkheim was living with the aftershocks of revolutions that swept Europe, and he was very concerned for maintaining societal stability. That's his key thing. His study on suicide was looking, gave us the idea that if we are not wedded to, if we are not given the norms, values, status and role, if we don't buy into the system, we get something called, what he called anomie, which is disaffection with the system. And this leads to suicide. This study posits that industrialization was a key driver to increasing suicide rates across Europe. And specifically, there were higher suicide rates in Protestant countries than there were in Catholic countries. And this was seen because that Protestant religion encouraged a more individualistic approach. It allowed for alienation in that it did not demand the same collective and same level of participation and collective and community thought that Catholicism did. Value consensus, idea that, and value consensus for functionalists is, if you like, another term for culture itself. Remember, we're talking norms, values, status and role. Values inform everything, don't they? So if we have, as Durkheim posits, that a core set of shared values agreed on by society that we all buy into, and that allows us to cooperate and work with each other. To him, us all having this thing called value consensus, this thing called culture, and it as a unifying force was absolutely essential. The body analogy follows on from this. Like the body pumping around blood and other vital things that keep us going, sorry, my biology isn't that brilliant, society acts like a body. And what is carried around the system is those norms, values, status and role, the culture of our society to keep us uniformed, to keep us going. So what he saw was, if there is a problem with any part of the body, right? If you take the analogy, say, if we say for the heart, we say it's the social institution of the family, we say the lungs, education, we say the kidneys, it's criminal justice system, we say the brain, mass media, whatever you like, but whatever analogy is there, what each of those social systems does is pump the good stuff round, the culture, the values, so that we can all agree and come together. And in fact, functionalists point to where this doesn't work as showing the problems. So when there is divorce in the family, which they're very against divorce in the family, it means that there is no male role model in the family. So the socialization doesn't take place in a way it ought to. So when you see politicians saying, because of single parent families, there are more delinquent male kids, this is what they're talking about. They haven't had the good stuff. They haven't been socialized in the rights and wrongs of society in the way they should. And this is the point. The other thing that this also demonstrates is the conservative nature of functionalist thought. What they're doing, like, I don't know, society's biologists, is opening up the body, looking at the organs, deciding what function, see, this is the name of functionalists, what function each organ or part of society has, the family, education system, what have you, and then saying it should be there and it should be maintained. If we were to go in a time capsule or Doctor Who's TARDIS and go back in time, and the same analysis was applied to countries and countries where slavery was a social institution, it would say why slavery is important for the maintaining of society, right? It doesn't challenge, it doesn't say it's unfair, it assumes everything is as it should be. Social institutions such as education, you can see how education, not only through the overt curriculum, but what people call the hidden curriculum, teaches right and wrong, teaches how to behave, gives us rules of behavior in the social world. Likewise, the family, the political system reinforces the idea of fair play, democracy, which are all part of culture. The mass media, whether you're watching EastEnders or the BBC News, reinforce this message, keep us all together, keep the juice of culture running around our system. The health service or medical system is part of this network, is a social institution in itself. Durkheim talks about the function of the health service, not only to keep people fit and able to work and contribute in society, but the regulation of illness. So if someone goes off sick, there is like a societal contract between those that say that they're ill. The medical profession will do their best to get them back on their feet, as long as they stand the regulation and report in and agree to take the medicine. There's a function for each of these social institutions in maintaining the good body of society. Functionalists are particularly concerned with this idea of solidarity then. Solidarity means belief in your fellow Brit, identifying with your fellow Englishman, so that sacrifices can be made for the good of society. Typically war, why would we ever stand up and fight for our country unless we had a sense of solidarity with the English people that live here? Mechanic solidarity refers to a form of solidarity that existed pre-industrialization. Mechanic solidarity is based on the idea that back in those days, most of us would have had very similar life experiences and little in the way of specialization. What I mean by that is we all lived on farms. We all worked on farms all week long, and at the end of the week, here we did, we went to our medieval church, got on our knees and prayed to the same God. Our experiences gave us solidarity. The mechanic, the doing the same thing meant we were automatically connected. It was a much more stable and conformist society. Organic solidarity refers to what we have now, namely in an industrialized nation, where there is much specialism. No longer is there the family unit, one of production, consumption, education, health, clothing manufacture. The whole kit and caboodle was true in pre-industrial society. So they're all very specialized institutions, which are equally important in spreading the message of solidarity. It just has to be focused on in a different way. Functional fit. Now, functional fit is the idea that as society changes, the functions of its social institutions change along too. So, for instance, when we talk about the family, pre-industrial society had large family units. This is because you would work as a family, live as a family. What I mean by that is out in the fields, it makes sense to have lots of workers from the same family unit, perhaps extended family, uncles, aunts, granddads, whatever, whoever could work out there could do it. Think also about the fact there's no social services, there's no pension, but old people need to depend on their family for future survival. So that it makes sense in that fit of society to have an extended family. Whereas in a modern society, in a society that has come about through the process of industrialization, it is important to have a small family unit because it is essential that we have geographic mobility in a modern society. It is important that the most talented and best people get the best jobs.